Anthony Richardson didn't play well year one, but I'm basically counting this upcoming season as his rookie year. He played just 2 full games, so incredibly raw coming out of college, so it's hard to evaluate his performance, but one thing that's for sure is he has all of the athletic profiling to be an elite quarterback in this league. He tested, according to the Relative Athletic Score, RAS, as the most athletic quarterback ever, which accounts for how much a person weighs and how well they perform in the combine. So Richardson is super athletic physically, and he is, I guess that's kind of redundant. If you're athletic physically. But with that said, he's also got a cannon for an arm and is just a prototypical quarterback in basically every way. He is, like I said, very raw, but he is somebody to watch out for certain. The backup quarterback for Indianapolis is Joe Flacco, and you could do a lot worse than that in all honesty. Flacco was my 20th best quarterback last year, which is awesome for a backup. So if Richardson were to go down again, which you would absolutely hate to see, they would be fine enough to stay afloat with Flacco as their option. As we move to the supporting cast, if you're liking this video, make sure you like the video, as it makes a massive difference, and also be sure to subscribe for more content. I usually use ESPN's pass blocking and run blocking win rates, but they had Indianapolis as the 26th best pass blocking unit, and that absolutely did not match my eye test. So in this instance, I'm using PFF's pass blocking and run blocking grades. There, Indianapolis ranked 6th in both run blocking and pass blocking, and that sounds about right to me because they do genuinely have a good line. What's nice too is they'll return all 5 of their starters, and that sucks for opponents because Bernard Ryen will be another year developed, and that unit will have an additional year of cohesion, which chemistry on the offensive line matters a ton. It's almost as important as just having the right guys in the lineup in the first place. It's not quite that important, but it's honestly pretty similar in my opinion. So it is super valuable to be able to be cohesive like they'll be, and I think they'll be, again, one of the top lines in the entire NFL. As far as depth goes, swing tackle Matt Goncalves is about it, as he was drafted in the 3rd round this year. He has the makings of a solid, yet uninspiring offensive tackle or possibly guard. Since 2019, the average 3rd round tackle in their rookie year receives a 60 PFF grade, which would be good for 62nd out of 89 offensive tackles that played 20% or more of snaps. So he's a good option as a backup if he performs up to par with other 3rd round tackles. Also at guard, though, is Tanner Bortolini, who has great athleticism, is versatile, and has good IQ, though he does lack some length, hence him being a guard or interior player just in general. Since 2019, 4th round rookie interior offensive lineman averaged a 53 PFF grade, which would place him as the 64th best interior offensive lineman out of 88. So again, that could be a solid option if he can hit the ground running. Weapons-wise, they're actually pretty solid, and they have the potential to be really good. It starts with Michael Pittman, who was 15th in yards per game and 78th in yards per reception. So he's not much of a deep downfield burner, but he can consistently move the chains, which is super valuable. Josh Downs is a pretty similar player, being 56th in yards per game and 63rd in yards per reception. Downs is a prototypical slot option that can run all of the routes you would like to see a slot do, and he does them all at a pretty high level, I would say. He's a great option to have as another short to intermediate threat. Somebody that is a deeper option, though, is Adonai Mitchell, who will likely be their 3rd receiver in my opinion. Mitchell was selected 52nd overall, but he was my 25th best player in the class. So who you're going to trust? This random YouTuber you're following now, or the NFL? Obviously the random YouTuber. With that said, I do definitely realize that there is a hesitancy with that, so even if he is just as good as what his draft grade would suggest, or draft selection would suggest, he should still be pretty good. Say he performs like the ordinary second rounder at receiver, that'll mark a clear upgrade over what Alec Pierce was last year, because Pierce earned a 58 PFF grade, and the average second round wide receiver since 2019 has received a nice 69 grade. Moving to tight end, the Colts have 3 viable tight ends, but their leader, Kylan Grayson, was 28th in yards per game among tight ends, and 4th in yards per reception among tight ends, so he was hyper efficient in the receptions he did get. I'd focus more on the 4th in yards per reception because, again, he did have limited reps, but he definitely made the most of it when he could, so he's somebody to watch out for as a breakout candidate. It's tough because they do have so many options at tight end, it's hard for any one player to really be at their absolute best, but either way, it's a good situation to have for the team because between him, Andrew Ogletree, and Mo Alley-Cox, they honestly have probably the best trio of tight ends in the league. That's maybe a little bit bold for you, but there's not too many teams that genuinely have 3 tight ends that are competent, let alone good. So they have a good situation on their hand at tight end. At running back, they also do. Jonathan Taylor ranked 25th out of 59 halfbacks in PFF grade. He has the potential to be much better than that. He still is an electric runner with good speed to get downhill, and he's a pretty hefty back at about 225 pounds. So he's a really nice option. He can receive the ball pretty well. Also, he's not the greatest at it, but he's not bad by any stretch. The Colts have, depth-wise, Jelani Woods and Mo Alley-Cox, as I mentioned before, as their tight ends. I actually think I didn't mention Jelani Woods. I should have, though. Jelani Woods, another good tight end option, which is ridiculous that they can go 4 deep at tight end, but he was pretty good in 2022, so he is somebody to watch out for as well. I don't know what his raw stats were, but I know that advanced stats liked him pretty decently. So they have a ton of depth at tight end, the most depth you'll probably ever see, because they have 4 competent or better tight ends. And they have, again, a deep threat in Alec Pierce, who ranked 9th in yards per reception, which is really good, but as a player as a whole, he was not very good. At cornerback, the Colts are solid with Juju Brents ranking 66th out of 127 in PFF grade. At his best, he uses his 6'3" body to erase receivers. At his worst, he's average against the run and can struggle with shifty players. So he's a bit all over the place, but I would still like him on my team because if you have 3 corners that are, say, 66th or even better, you have a fine rotation of corners. You're really just at a loss when you have people that are like in the 100 range, because then you're really getting exposed as teams look to target you. It's hard to target a player if you're roughly average. Somebody who's way more than average, though, is Kenny Moore, who was graded 18th by PFF. Moore seems undersized at 5'9", but he doesn't let that hold him back. He's great against the run and is one of the best slot corners in the game. He can play outside a little bit too, but that's mainly if you only have 2 corners on the field. So he's going to be in the nickel in most situations because nickel is the base defense at this point. Jalen Jones is also solid as their 3rd corner. At safety, they're good and bad. Justin Blackmon ranked 38th out of 95 safeties. He's quite good in coverage but poor against the run. He's very versatile, though, as he logged 175 or more snaps in the box at nickel corner and at free safety. And Rodney Thomas is the bad portion because he was 78th in PFF grade. Like most of their other defensive backs, he struggles against the run, but is all right against the pass, which if you're going to struggle against one, it's definitely preferable to struggle against the run, but Thomas kind of struggles against both, and what helps mitigate the struggles against the run is the fact that they have a numbers advantage on a lot of plays, because Gus Bradley, I believe that's the defensive coordinator, yeah, Gus Bradley, is somebody that likes to put in an extra safety in the box with his cover 3 and cover 1 schemes. So they have the numbers advantage. So even if they don't have the greatest talent to stop run on their defensive backs, they have the numbers to do so. Regarding their defensive back depth, Dallas Flowers, who spells his name very interestingly, didn't play enough to get a PFF rank, but he was solid last year in limited snaps. So he's somebody to watch out for. He could be their third corner this year. On the defensive line, the Colts are stacked, but not quite as much as they could be, because Samson Ebukam, their best edge rusher, is unfortunately going to miss the whole season. Dayo Odoingbo, ranked 70th out of 122 in edge pressures. He's likely going to be a starting edge for them. But one thing that has me a bit worried about that is the fact that he's terrible against the run despite being 286 pounds, which is just a conundrum of sorts. I don't know how you can be that big and not be proficient on the edge as a run defender. He must not just have the good technique, or must not really try as much as he should. Somebody that's kind of the opposite is Kwity Paye, who similarly had a 74th ranking for edge pressures, but Paye is fantastic against the run. He's one of the best edge setters in the entire league. DeForest Buckner on the interior was 12th out of 142 in pressures, so he is a great pass rusher, but he's also more than good enough against the run. Speaking of being more than good enough against the run, Grover Stewart was 82nd in defensive interior pressures despite missing 6 games, so I'll take that. That's a solid pressure getter right there. And he's a dominant run defender, one of the best in the game. Doesn't get talked about nearly as much as he should. The great Brett Kollmann put me onto him in the first place because he was singing Stewart's praises, and Grover is just a fantastic player that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as he should. As for their depth on the defensive line, Tyquan Lewis was 46th out of 122 edges and pressures. Laiatu Latu was drafted 15th overall and was my 12th best player in the draft. Edges drafted in the first since 2019 averaged a 65 grade, and Latu is a lot cleaner of a prospect than most, so he should likely exceed that grade. Also, Latu is going to be the starter opposite Paye, in my opinion, for the most part. But right now, it's hard to say who's going to be getting the starting nod between Odoingbo and Latu, because right now Latu is slated to be the backup left defensive end, and Dayo is the starting right defensive end. So I think that'll change. I think Latu will be able to figure out how to play on the other side just fine. But that's what it stands right now, is Latu is going to be their depth piece, and he's just going to be a terror for teams, I think. He's going to hit the ground running because he's so technically sound and has great hand usage. Even if he doesn't have the most imposing athleticism, he's just a great football player. On the interior, they have Raekwon Davis, who is solid against the run and pass. I was worried. I thought he was also injured, but he just has high blood pressure at the moment, so he should be good to go for the season. As far as their linebackers are concerned, EJ Speed ranked 48th out of 82 linebackers in PFF grade and excels as a run defender. He struggles against the pass, though, so that's a bit worrisome. He can be targeted in coverage a good bit, and that's, like I was alluding to before, with you're wanting your defense to not have guys that are easy to pick on, because that just makes it harder for the offenses to scheme up what they're trying to do. Speed is definitely somebody that can be picked on in coverage. Zaire Franklin was 58th in PFF grade. He's similar to Speed in that he's best against the run and not very strong against the pass, which is less than ideal to have one linebacker be that way, let alone two. The depth at linebacker is also very limited, having Ronnie Harrison, the converted safety, as their best option. Harrison is a super physical safety linebacker hybrid that I think could have success at linebacker because he just didn't have the great speed to be a safety, but he has more than enough speed to be a linebacker. He also struggled a bit in coverage as a safety, but a bad coverage safety is a good coverage linebacker in a lot of instances, so I think he could be somebody to watch out for as well. I don't have the highest of hopes because he's pretty late in his career at this point. He's been in the league for a good while, but maybe he turns it around at a new position. In all, the Colts are just a quarterback away, and Anthony Richardson might just be their guy. Shane Steichen is a great coach that gets the most out of his guys on offense, and he has a lot of talent at his disposal. Their offensive line is elite, their weapons are good enough, especially if Adonai Mitchell can contribute early. Their defensive line is ferocious and deep, their defensive backs are good enough, and their linebackers are less than ideal, but their defense as a whole is nothing to scoff at, especially because, like they are on offense, they're coached well on defense by Gus Bradley, who knows exactly what to put his guys into position to play. If Richardson hits on just part of his massive potential, the Colts should be a team that no one wants to face. It's just going to be a bit difficult to evaluate them early on because we don't know exactly what Richardson is going to be. But with him, the ceiling is the freaking moon, so they could be somebody to watch out for. Those are my thoughts on the Colts. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.